Good day, fucking morning, viewers. I mean, clues. My little munchkin clues. Howdy do. I see all of you. Pop, 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 pop. Anywho, this is here. Today will be a little bit of a different type of live stream. In fact, I thought of it yesterday. I was like, oh wait, I cannot read. I can't read. I am incapable of reading. I am retarded. But then I realized, wait a minute, no, I just get bored really quickly. And that's not to say that the thing I'm reading is like boring or anything. It's just that I have a thing with things that aren't cool enough. So, yeah, say what you will. But yeah, we will be reading some really awesome, fucking badass stories. So I thought, why read it alone? Why not read it with the viewers? And I'm trying it out for the first time. It's been in an idea. It's not even mine, to be honest. It's someone else's, but they recommended it, and I was like, oh shit, that sounds awesome. Dark Hannah, please. We don't need that kind of truth in this show. Anyway, so we'll start with the first story before Dark Hannah starts spinning out some more fucking truths. But besides that, howdy do, Dark Hannah. It's lovely seeing you. Did you see my last night live stream? Pretty badass, if you ask me. Although a lot of strange things happen. I don't even understand most of it, but you know what it is. But yeah, we'll be reading and trying to finish this book. I mean, I'm almost close. There's only counting the story, 4 stories together. And after I've read the story, there's 3 stories after it. And they're all great stories, but why the fuck is this book so chunky? I can't do this. Oh, okay. When you do, you're gonna have a laugh. I'll trust. You're crutch-cheating a minion? Oh, heck yeah. That's the only best way to do it. Well, hell, then this will be awesome for you. You'll be listening to my awesome reading sound, which I'm gonna make up in the stream by myself because that's fucking badass. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it, for real. Anyway, let me just reciprocate. Anyway, all right. Now we begin. All right, just kind of gotta give him. Gotta be like, whoa! Gotta be like, oh shit, that was scary as fuck. Alright, yeah, alright! Anyway, viewers, don't mind that. Just a bit of self-coaching, you know how it is. Let us begin. The strange high house in the mist. In the morning mist comes. Fuck! Benji Games! What the fuck is your problem, man? I'm trying to take a fucking shit. I mean, no, I'm trying to read the story to Dark. Oh, fuck! More! Damn it! Oh, God! Seppuku! Anyway, no, it's nothing like that going on. I was just gonna read because. Oh! What did I do this time? Listen. What the fuck you want? Explain yourself. Before I explain you with my fist. Listen, man, I'm just trying to have some fun. No Sudoku! That's for nerds! We only do Seppuku in these streams. Yeah! Trouble! Nothing! Rude! Man, I swear to God, 3 fucking row. Oh, well, of course. Hi, guys. Hello. Oh my God, you're all looking so wonderfully dressed. Look at all of you distinguished gentlemen and women. I absolutely adore all of you because you are all worthy of adoration by me, of course. Who else better? But anyway, cuppas, howdy do? How does the morning treat you, and how does the afternoon sieve you, and how does the night feed you? There can only be so much we could all do, fellies. How could I? What? What did I do? This time. Oh, man. How could I? Alright, be real here, Benjamin Games. How could you? What the fuck, man? Listen, there's only so much I can do before I get into this fucking book of awesomeness. And before I even give you all the attention in the world, and I will finish this book with all that attention splintered around in it. Oh, look at this shit. It's all over. Fucking Benji Games, fucking Raz, fucking Hazel, fucking Andrew, fucking Dark Channel, everyone's up in here. Listen, there's only so much I can explain. But, for context, just tell me what to explain and I might explain it. If it's too gay, then I won't, obviously, because it's gay. What's there to explain? During a stream? Of course! Well, I just have, a problem. I was like, I can always read this book. Wow! What a great feeling. However, there is nothing more that I dislike than getting that really, really awful feeling of feeling bored-ish. And just kind of just like, you know, instantly just like, oh, okay, next time. But then I was like, how to solve this issue? And then a friend of mine was like, why don't you read it instead to your live stream? It would kind of be the best way possible to get through it. And you could be sharing with your viewers what you're experiencing so they know what to expect. I was like, you fucking genius. That is awesome. And, like, quite literally, I love it. Like, it's really, really awesome. Dark, please, Dark Hannah. Why you gotta do me like this? They could be copyrighted material. Copywritten? I don't give a fuck. That's some H. You forget who I am. Music, games, books. None of it affects me. But at the end of the day, you know, reading's reading. And hell, nothing better than to share the load. For real. But anywho, viewers, listen. We have about, after this story, 3 more stories. And it's pretty chunky, so I wonder how long they are. Spoku. But hopefully it'll be really cool, because the stories I've read so far are really fucking awesome. Oh, so pretty much, it is Lovecraft, and it is one of the fucking, oh man, you know what, it's really cool, because I've read 2 of the books by technicality. The first one being all of his short stories, and then the second one being one big story full of adventure, wonder, and nightmares, and oh my god, that book was awesome. But I always had the same problem. How do you keep on reading? How do you keep going without saying, okay, save for next time? Not as in, I'll bookmark it type of thinking. I'm more like, alright, next time, because not feeling it. Which is like, why would I not feel it? I want to read these. I want to know about these, basically. But, yeah. And no better way to know something than reading, so. In any case, viewers. Hey. It only gets better. So hell. And heck, there's so many of you. Holy moly, you're all chatting all amongst yourselves. So wonderful. I love to see it. Oh yeah, and Raz, did you see it? Did you see the last night live stream? Did you see Sxar? If you didn't, you better go check it out, man. It's awesome. I bet you stop blaming me! And I do not read 50 Shades of myself. That'd be pretty fucking weird, though. 50 Shades? Man, I'm not even... Okay. Well. Hey! Yeah, the intro's pretty fun. Hell yeah. Such a great game. Such cool. I just like the way it is. Very well designed and such. Alrighty, goodbye, Resius. Everybody say a goodbye or Elonzi to Resius. Yeah, it honestly does. And you know what? I guess that's maybe the thing with reading, but hey, if this way I can read it, then what's more not to like? Might as well. And hey, you'll be hearing it from me too, so it will all be listed to the same thing. Estimate, you all ruined my mood. Now I gotta go back to it. Alright. Yeah. Ooh. Ooh, wow. Ooh. Yeah! Fuck. Denji, I'm sorry! I'll pick you back up. Ah! No, Denji. No. Sit still. Okay, good. Alright! Back at it. The strange high house in the mist. In the morning, mist comes up from the sea by the cliffs beyond Kingsport. White and feathery it comes from the deep to its brothers, the clouds full of dreams of dank pastures and caves of Leviathan. And later in still summer rains on the steep roofs of poets, and the clouds scatter bits of those dreams that men shall not live without rumor of old. Strange secrets and wonders that planets tell without living without rumor of old. Oh wait, shit. See? That also happens a lot, just like rereading shit. Anyway, back to it. Sorry. Where was I? Yes. Tell planets alone in the night. When tales fly thick in the grottos of tritons and conches in seaweed cities, blow wild tunes, learn from the elder ones. Then great eager mists flock to heaven laden with lore. And oceanward eyes on the rocks see only a mystic whiteness, as if the cliff's rim were the rim of all earth, and the solemn bells of bayous tolled free in the ether of fairy. Now north of Archik, Kingsport the crags climb lofty and curious, to race on the terrace, till the northernmost hangs in the sky like a grey frozen wind cloud. Alone it is a bleak point jutting in limitless space, for there the coast turns sharp where the great Miskatonic pours out of the plains past Arkham. So cool. So fucking cool. I just love the way it's written. Bringing woodland legends and little quaint memories of New England's hills. You feel it? I feel it. The sea folk in Kingsport look up at the cliff as other sea folk look up at the pole star, and time the night's watches by the way it hides, or shoes the great bear Cassiopeia and the dragon. Among them it is one with the firmament, and truly it is hidden from them when the mist hides the stars or the sun. Some of the cliffs they love as that whose grotesque profile they call Father Neptune. Ooh, interesting. Or with that whose pillared steps they term the causeway, but this one they fear because it is near the sky. The Portuguese sailors come in from a voyage crossed themselves. When they first see it, and the old Yankees believe it, would be much graver matter than death to climb it. If needed, that were. Ooh, first page in, and already. Mushik. For real. Mushik to the ears. And it only gets better from here. Not too. Always. Possible, nevertheless. There is an ancient house on that cliff, and at evening men see lights in the small paned windows. The ancient house has always been there, and people say one dwells therein who talks with the morning mists that come up from the deep, and perhaps sees singular things oceanward. At those times when the cliff's rim becomes the rim of all earth, and solemn boyos tall free in the white ether of fairy, this they tell from hearsay, for that forbidding crag is always uninvisited, and natives dislike to train telescopes on it. Summer boarders have indeed scanned it with jaunty binoculars, and have never seen more than the grey primeval roof, peaked and shingled, whose eaves come nearly to the grey foundations, and the dim yellow light of the little windows peeping out from under those eaves in the dusk. These summer people do not believe that the same one has lived in the ancient house for hundreds of years, but cannot prove their hearsay to any real king's porter. Even the terrible old man who talks to leaden pendulums in the bottles, buys groceries with censured Spanish gold, and keeps stone idols in the yard of his antediluvian cottage in Water Street, can only say these things were the same when his grandfather was a boy, and that there must have been inconceivable ages ago, when Belcher or Shirley or Ponwell or Bernard was governor of His Majesty Providence of the Massachusetts Bay. Oh. Then one summer there came a philosopher into Kingsport. His name was Thomas Olney, and he taught ponderous things in a college by Nardsgate Bay. With stout wife and romping children he came, and his eyes were weary with seeing the same things for many years. And thinking the same well-disciplined thoughts, he looked at the mist from the diadem of Father Neptune, and tried to walk into their white world of mystery along the tightened steps of the causeway. Morning after morning he would lie on the cliffs and look over the world's rims at the cryptical ether beyond, listening to spectral bells and the wild cries of what might have been gulls. Then when the mist would lift and the sea stand out prosy with the smoke of steamers, he would sigh and descend to the town, where he loved to thread the narrow olden lanes up and down hill and study and the crazy tottering gables and odd pillared doorways which had sheltered so many generations of sturdy sea folk, and even talked with the terrible old man, which by the way is a fantastic short story. Total would read. Also a game on Steam that's free. One day I want to check it out, but I haven't yet, so very excited. Who is not fond of strangers, and was invited into fearsomely archaic cottage, where low ceilings and wormy pin ceiling hear the echoes of disquieting soliloquies. There we go. In the dark, small hours. Of course, it was inevitable that Olney should mark the grey, unvisited cottage in the sky, on that sinister northward crag which is one with the mist and the firmament. Always over Kingsport it hung, and always its mystery sounded in whispers through Kingsport's crooked alleyways. The terrible old man wheezed a tale that his father had told him, of lightning that shot one night up from the peaked cottage to the clouds of the abode in Ship Street, and all covered with moss and ivy, croaked over something her grandmother had heard at second hand about narrow, single door of that unreachable place. For the door is set close to the edge of crag, toward the ocean, and glimpsed only from ships at sea. At length, being avid for new, strange things, and held back by neither the Kingsporter fear nor the summer's boarders' usual indolence, Olney made a very terrible resolve, despite a conservative training, or because of it, for humdrum lives breed wistful longing for the unknown. He swore a great oath to scale that avoided northern cliff, and visit the abnormally antique grey cottage in the sky. Very plausibly, his saner self argued that the place must be tenanted by people who reached it from inland along the easier ridge beside the Miskatonic estuary. Probably they traded in Arkham, knowing how little Kingsport liked their habitation. Or perhaps, being unable to climb down the cliff on the Kingsport side, only walked out along the lesser cliffs to where the great crag leaped insolently up to concert with. Oh, don't you worry, Darkana. Thank you. And you multitask. Get out there. For real. Celestial things, and became very sure that no human feet could mount it or descend it. On that beetling southern slope, east and north, it rose thousands of feet vertically from the water, so only the western side inland and toward Arkham remained. One early morning in August, only set out to find a path to that inaccessible pinnacle. He worked northwest along pleasant back roads, past Hooper's Pond, and the old brick powder house to where the pastures slope up to the ridge above the Miskatonic and give a low vista of Arkham's white Georgian steepless across leagues of river and meadow. Here we found a shady road to Arkham and had but no trail at all in the seaward direction he wished. Woods and fields crowded up to the high bank of the river's mouth, and bore not a sign of man's presence, not even a stone wall or straying cow, but only the tall grass and giant trees and tangled briars that the first Indian might have seen. As he climbed slowly east, higher and higher above the estuary on his left, and nearer the sea, he found the growing in difficulty, till he wondered how ever did the dwellers in that disliked place manage to reach the world outside, and whether they came often to market in Arkham. Then the trees thin and far below, on his right, saw the hills and antique roofs and spires of Kingsport. Even Central Hill was dwarfed from this height, and how could just make out the ancient graveyard by the Congressional Hospital, beneath which rumor said some terrible caves or burrows lurked. Ahead lay sparse grass and scrub blueberry bushes, and beyond them the naked rock of the crag and the thin peak of the dreaded grey cottage. Now the ridge narrowed and only grew dizzy at his aloneness in the sky. South of him the frightful precipice above Kingsport, north of him the vertical drop of nearly a mile to the river's mouth. Suddenly a great chasm opened before him, 10 feet deep, so that he had to let himself down by his hands, to drop to a slanting floor, and then crawl perilously up a natural defile in the opposite wall. So this was the way the folk of the uncanny house journeyed betwixt earth and sky. When he climbed out of the chasm, a morning mist was gathering, but he clearly saw the lofty and unhallowed cottage ahead. Walls as grey as the rock, and high peaks standing bold against the milky white of the seaward vapours, and he perceived that there was no door on this landward, and but only a couple of small lattice windows with dingy bull's-eye panes leaded in 17th century fashion. All around him was chaos and cloud, and he could see nothing below but the whiteness of illimitable space. He was alone in the sky with his queer and very disturbing house. And when he sidled around to the front and saw that the wall stood flush with the cloud's edge, so that the single narrow door was not to be reached save from the empty ether, he felt a distant terror the altitude could not wholly explain. And it was very odd That shingles so worm-eaten could survive, or bricks so crumbled still form a standing chimney. As the mist thickened, only crept around to the windows on the north and west and south sides, trying them, but finding them all locked. He was vaguely glad they were locked, because the more he saw of that house, the less he wished to get in. Then a sound halted him. He heard a lock rattle, and a bolt shoot, and a long creaking follow, as if a heavy door was slowly and cautiously opened. This was on the oceanward side that he could not see, where the narrow portal opened on blank space, the sounds of feet in the misty sky above the waves. Then there was heavy, deliberate tramping in the cottage, and only heard the windows opening, and first on the north side opposite him, and then saw on the west just around the corner. Next would come to the south sides under the great low eaves on the side where he stood, and it must have been said that he was more than uncomfortable as he thought of the distable house on the side and the vacancy of upper air on the other. When a fumbling came in the nearest casements, he crept around to west again, flattening himself against the wall beside the now opened windows. It was plain that the owner had come home, but he had not come from the island, or from the land, nor from any balloon or airship that he could be imagined. Steps sounded again, and they only edged round to the north, and before he could find a heaven, a voice called lost softly, and he knew he could confront his host. Stuck out of the west window was a great black-bearded face whose eyes shone phosphorescently with the imprint of unheard-of sights. But the voice was gentle, and of a quaint olden kind, so that only did not shudder when a brown hand reached out to him to help him over the sill and into the low room of black oak, wainscots, and carved Tudor furnishings. The man was clad in very ancient garments, and had about him an unplaceable nimbus of sea lore, and dreams of tall galleons, only does not recall many of the wonders he told, or even who he was, but says that he was strange and kindly, and filled with magic of unfathomed voids of time and space. The small room seemed green with dim anguished light, and only saw that the far windows to the east were not open, but shut against the misty ether with dull thick panes like the bottoms of old bottles. That bearded host seemed young, yet looked out of eyes steeped in the elder mysteries, and from the tales of marvelous ancient things he related. It must be guessed that the village folk were right in saying he had communed with the mist and the sea and the cloud of the sky ever since there was any village to watch his taciturn dwelling from the plain below. And the day wore on, and still only listened to the rumors of old times and far places, and heard how the kings of Atlas... Oh, the kings of Atlantis! That's so awesome! Gosh dang it, Lovecraft, you're just the gift that keeps giving. Anyway. And fought with the slippery blasphemies that wriggled out of rifts in ocean's floor, and how the pillared and weedy temple of Poseidonus is still glimpsed at midnight by lost ships who know by its sight that they are lost. Years of Titans were recalled, but the host grew timid when he spoke of the dim first age of chaos, before gods or even the elder ones were born, and when only the other gods came to dance on the peak of Hathig-Kla in the stony desert near Ulthar, beyond the river sky. It was at this point that they came a knocking on the door, that ancient door of nail-studded oak beyond which lay only the abyss of white cloud. Only started in fright, but the bearded man motioned him to be still, and tiptoed to the door to look out through a very small peephole. When he saw he did not like, so pressed his fingers to his lips and tiptoed around to shut and lock all the windows before returning to the ancient settle beside his guest. Then only saw lingering against the translucent squares of each of the little dim windows in succession a queer black outline as the cellar moved inquisitively about before leaving, and he was glad his host had not answered the knocking. For there are strange objects in the great abyss, and the seeker of dreams must take care not to stir up or meet the wrong ones. Then the shadows began to gather, first little furtive ones under the table, and then bolder ones in the dark panelled corners, and the bearded man, enigmatical gestures of prayer, and lit tall candles and curiously wrought brass candlesticks. Frequently he would glance at the door as if he expected someone, and at length his glance seemed answered by a singular rapping which must have followed some very ancient and secret code. This time he did not even glance through the people, but swung the great oak bar and shut the bolt, unlatching the heavy door, and flinging it wide to the stars and the mist. And then, to the sound of obscure harmonies, there floated into that room from the deep all the dreams and memories of earth's sunken mighty ones, and golden flames played about weedy locks, so that only was dazzled as he did them homage. Trident-bearing Neptune was there, and the sportive Tritons and fantastic Nereids, and above dolphins' backs was balanced a vast crenulate shell where rode the grey and awful form of primal Nodens, lord of the great abyss, and the ancient crunchions of the Tritons gave weird blasts that the Nereids made strange sounds by striking on the grotesque resonant shells of unknown lurkers in Black Sea caves. Then hoary Nodens reached forth a wizened hand and helped Olney and his host into the vast shell, whereat the crunches and the gaunches set up a wild and awesome calmer, and out into the limitless ether reeled that fabulous strain, the noise of whose shouting was lost in the echoes of thunder. Gotta love tea. Anyway. All night in Kingsport they watched that lofty cliff when the storm and the mist gave them glimpses of it, and when toward the small hours the little dim windows went dark, they whispered of dread and disaster, and Olney's children and stout wife prayed to the bland proper God of Baptist, and hoped that the traveller would borrow an umbrella and rubbers, unless the rain stopped by morning. Then dawn swam tripping, and mist wreathered out of the sea, and the bayous told solemn in vertices of white ether, and at noon elfin horns rang over the ocean as only dry and light-footed climbed down from the cliffs to antique Kingsport. With the look of far places in his eyes, he could not recall what he had dreamed in the sky-preached hut of that sight, of that very still, nameless hermit, or saw how he had crept down that crag untraversed by the other feet. Nor could he talk of these matters at all, save with the terrible old man. Again, when characters are put into the stories on a Lovecraft, oh, it's so good! Heck. What? Sorry, I'm yours. I'm here. Oh. I'm gonna grab my detective toy because I got scared. Come on. Okay. You with me, Grandpa? Denji? Grammy? Alright, goody. Bears? Sheep? Alright, goody. Alright. Alright. Shit! Where was I? Wait, am I above it? I think so. No. Wait. Oh, I'll just read it from what I remember. He cannot. Yeah. Okay. Wait. Yep. Have I missed that still thing? Ah, yes. Here it is. Here it is. And ever since that hour, through dull dragging years of greyness and weariness, the philosopher had laboured and eaten and slept and done uncomplaining the suitable deeds of a citizen. Not any more does he long for the magic of farther hills, or sigh for secrets that peer like green reefs from a bottomless sea. Oh, you know what, guys? A quick note. I have... One day, I will have The Sunless Sea, the video game, to play for a stream. And that game is really cool. So when I hear like stuff like, this, it's really cool to me. It really is. Sunless Sea is a fantastic game. But I have so many others to get through. So with time and patience, for real. We'll get through them all, I promise. I made a promise. I'll keep it. The sameness of his days no longer gives him sorrow, and well-disciplined thoughts have grown enough for his imagination. His good wife waxes stouter, and his children older and prosier and more useful, and he never fails to smile correctly with pride and when the occasion calls for it. In his glance there is not any restless light, and if he ever listens for solemn bells or far elfin horns, it is only at night when old dreams are wandering. He has never seen Kingsport again, for his family disliked the funny old houses, and complaining that the drains were impossibly bad. That's fair enough. Can't take a shit, because the sewers are bad. I played Gloomwood. I know what's up. Okay. They have a trim bungalow now at Bristol Highlands, where no tall crags tower, and neighbours are urban and modern. But in Kingsport, strange tales are abroad, and even the terrible old man admits a thing untold by his grandfather, for now. Sorry. When the wind sweeps boisterous out of the north past the high ancient house, that is one with the firmament, there is broken at last, that ominous brooding silence ever before, the bane of Kingsport's maritime cotters. And old folk tell of pleasing voices hearing singing there, and of laughter that swells with joys beyond earth's joys, and say that is evening the little low windows are brighter than formerly. They say, too, that the fierce aurora comes oftener to that spot, shining blue in the north with visions of frozen worlds, while the craig and the cottage hang black and fantastic against wild crustaceans, and the mists of the dawn are thicker, and sailors are not quite so sure that all the muffled seaward ringing is that of the solemn boys. Worst of all, just boyos? Worst of all, though, is the shriveling of old fears in the hearts of Kingsport's young men, who grow prone to listen at night to the north wind's faint distant sound. For in the new voices gladness beats, and with them. Oh no, I lost my page! Kingsport's corners and the old folk pleasing heard singing there, and laughter swells with joys, earth's joys, and say that his low windows are formerly. Yes. Oh yeah, Worst of all, there is the shriveling of old fears in the hearts of Kingsport's young men, who are prone to listen at night in the north wind's faint distant. They swear no harm can inhabit that high-peaked cottage, for in the new voices gladness beats, and with them the tinkle of laughter and music. What tales the sea mist may bring to that haunted and northernmost pinnacle, they do not know, but they do long to extract some hint of the wonders that knock at the cliff-yawning door, when clouds are thickest and the patriarchs dread lest some day by one they seek out of the inaccessible peak in the sky, and learn what censured secrets hide beneath the steep shingled roof, which is part of the rocks and the stars, and the ancient fears of Kingsport that those venturesome youths will come back. They do not doubt, but they think a light may be gone from their eyes, and a will from their hearts, and they do not wish quaint Kingsport, with its climbing lanes and archaic gables, to drag listless down the years, while voice by voice the laughing chorus grows stronger and wilder in that unknown and terrible area where mist and dreams of mist stop to rest on their way from the sea to the skies. I saw that! Hey! Listen! I don't know. I told you about the reading. Oh! Listen! I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And I want it! I want it! Wah. How dare you? Crying. Sharding even. It happens. Anyway. Back to it. They do not wish the souls of their young men to leave the pleasant hearths and gambrel roofed taverns of old Kingsport, nor do they wish in that high rocky place to grow louder, for as the voice which has come has brought fresh mists from the sea, and from the north fresh lights. They say that still other works will bring more mists and more lights, till perhaps the olden gods, whose existence they had only in whispers, for the congressional parson shall hear, may come out of the deep and from unknown Kadath. Oh shit! Holy shit! Unknown Kadath mentioned for real. That's a Randolph Carter's moment. Anyway, what? Oh, okay. Only the whispers for fear the congressional person shall hear may come out of the deep and from unknown Kadath in the cold waste, and make their dwellings on that evilly appropriate crag so close to the gentle hills and valleys for quiet, simple fisher folk. They do not wish for to plain people things that not of the earth are unwelcome, and besides the terrible old man, and oh shit! And they don't wish for the plain. Stop! Earth are unwelcome, and besides the terrible old man often recalls what only said about a knock that the lone dweller feared. Yeah, I was wondering about that too, actually. I was like, what the fuck? And a shape seen black and inquisitive against the mist through this queer translucent windows of lighted bull's eyes. All these things, however, the elder ones only may decide. And meanwhile the morning mist still comes up by that lonely, vertiginous peak with the steep ancient house, that grey low-eaved house, where none is seen, but where evening brings furtive lights, while the north wind tells of strange revels. White and feathery it comes from the deep to its brothers, the clouds, full of dreams and dank pastures, and caves of Leviathan. And when tales fly thick in the grottos of tritons and crunches in seaweed cities, blow wild tunes learned from the elder ones, then great eager vapors flock to the heaven laden with lore and Kingsport, nestling uneasy on its lesser cliffs below that awesome hanging sentinel of rock seas oceanward. Only a mystique whiteness as if the cliff's rim were the rim of all earth, and the solemn bells of the bayous tolled free in the ether of fairy. Holy fuck, that end bit though. I mean, the whole story is fucking fantastic, but that end bit with, Randolph Carter. It's the unknown Kadath. Unknown Kadath. Wah. It's so cool. I like it. And heck, we made it to the next story. So that is how many stories to go? That is 2 stories to go. Holy, I think it's the last story that's the longest because there's still so many fucking pages to read. Oh, shit. Oh well, I can do it. I was born to do it. I'm Zardath fucking Kingsfire. Did you know they made a movie? I don't know if it's based off The Color Out of Space, but it has Nicolas Cage in it, funnily enough. And I do wonder if it actually is, you know, the story. Because I know a lot of Lovecraftian stories that just don't get properly showed. What the? Hey! Oh, man! Screw you! Fine! Oh. You know my tricks. Gosh dang it. How to get so sloppy. Yeah. Anyway. But also, thank you. I need it. Oh. Damn my autism! Or whatever it is. I mean, I don't think I'm autistic. I think I'm awesome. But that's just a me thing, so. Who knows? Alright. See, I would play the tunes I'm listening to, but it's like... Now we're talking about reading material being copyrighted. That's definitely copyrighted. And I know what you guys are listening to nothing, but, you know, hopefully you have something else playing in the background, so. I hope the best, for real. I really do. Well. Anyway, now. Oh, actually. Fantastic. All right. Are you ready? Okay. Hey! Howdy do, Mystic Frog. I'm gonna be honest, this awesome-matic is fucking incredible, Dark Knight. Welcome back to my streams. Also, this is not that kind of stream. Reading stream. Yeah, pretty new. Just started today. I'm on the Meth Fest. Anyway. Now, we read... Oh yeah, we're reading Lovecraftian stories, because I'm bad at reading, so I thought, hey, since I'm so bad at reading, a friend of mine was like, why don't you just read with your stream? I'm like, fuck yeah! And, you know, you guys will know what I'm talking about in my videos most of the time. Not that I, you know, technically put anything Lovecraftian in my videos. I just put stuff I think is really interesting. Anyway. Yes! Really horror stories for real, Mystic Frog! We're on it. Alright. And also, okay, a review on the Hill House. I never get that fucking name right! I am so bad! The Strange High House is the best! It's too many H's! The Strange High House in the Mist. The Strange High House in the Mist. The Strange High House. Okay. The High House. Okay. Anyway, yeah. That was fantastic. It was awesome. It had the Unknown Cadet mention. And of course, I'm a big fan of all of that. Because the Dreamlands. They're fantastic. I'm a cat. Meow. Anyway. Okay. Also, Lovecraft spelled color wrong. Anyway, the the color out of space. West of Arkham, the hills rise wild, and there are valleys with deep woods that no axe has ever cut. There are dark, narrow glens where the trees slope fantastically and where thin brooklets trickle without ever having caught the glint of sunlight. On the gentler slopes there are farms, ancient and rocky, with squat and moss-coated cottages, brooding eternally, never old. New England secrets in the lee of great ledges, but they're all vacant now. The wide chimneys crumbling and the shingled sides bulging peerlessly beneath low gambrel roofs. The old folk have gone away, and the foreigners do not like to live there. French Canadians have tried it. Italians have tried it. And the Poles have come and departed. It is not because of anything that can be seen or heard or handled, but because of something that is imagined. The place is not good for the imagination, and does not bring restful dreams at night. It must be this which keeps the foreigners away, for old Ammi Pierce has never told them of anything he recalls from the strange days. Ammi, whose head has been a little queer for years, is the only one who still remains, or who ever talks of the strange days. And he dares to do this because of his house is so near, with the open fields and the travelled roads around Arkham. There was once a road over the hills and through the valleys that ran straight, where the blasted heath is now. But people ceased to use it, and a new road was laid curving far toward the south. Traces of the old one can still be found amidst the weeds of returning wilderness, and some of them would doubtless linger even when half the hollows are flooded. For the new reservoir, then the dark woods will be cut down, and the blasted heath will slumber far below blue waters. And the blasted heath will slumber far below blue waters, whose surface will mirror the sky and the ripple in the sun. And the secrets of the strange days will be one with the deep's secrets, one with the hidden lore of old ocean and all the mystery of primal earth. When I went into the hills and the valleys to survey for the new reservoir, they told me the place was evil. They told me this is in Arkham, and because this is a very old town full of witch legends, I thought the evil must be something which grandmas had whispered to children through centuries. The name Blasted Heath seemed to me very odd and theatrical, and I wondered how it had come into the folklore of Puritan people. Then I saw that dark westward tangle of glens and slopes for myself, and ceased to wonder at anything besides its own elder mystery. It was when I saw it, but shadow lurked always there. The trees grew too thickly, and their trunks were too big for any healthy New England wood. There was too much silence in the dim alleys between them, and the floor was too soft with the dank moss and mattings of infinite years of decay. In the open spaces, mostly along the line of the old road, there was little hillside farms, sometimes with all the buildings standing, sometimes with only one or two, and sometimes with only a lone chimney or a fast-filling cellar. Weeds and briars resigned and furtive wild things rustled in the undergrowth. Upon everything was a haze and restless, an oppression, a touch of the unreal and the grotesque, as if some vital element of perspective or chiaroscuro were awry. I did not wonder that the foreigners would not stay, for this was no reign to sleep in. It was too much like a landscape of Salvator Rosa, too much like some forbidden woodcut in the Tale of Terror. But even with all this was not so bad as the Blasted Heath. I knew in the moment I came upon it at the bottom of the spacious valley, for no other name could fit such a thing, or any other thing fit it such a name. It was as part of it the poet had coined the phrase from having seen this in one particular region. It must, I thought as I viewed it, be the outcome of a fire, but why had nothing new ever grown over those 5 acres of grey desolation that sprawled open to the sky like a great spot eaten by acid in the woods? Anfield. It lay largely to the north of the ancient road line, but encroached by a little on the roadside. I felt an odd reluctance about reapproaching, and it did so at last, only because my business took me through and past it. There was no vegetation of any kind on that broad expanse, but only a fine grey dust or ash, which no wind seemed to ever to blow about. The trees near it were thick, stickly, and stunted, and many dead trunks stood or lay rotted at the rim. And as I walked hurriedly by, I saw the tumbled bricks and the stones of an old chimney and cellar on my right, and the yawning black maw of an abandoned whose stagnant vapors played strange tricks with the hues of the sunlight. Oh god. I hate that. Anyway. All the segment vapors played strange tricks with the hues of the sunlight. Even the long, dark woodland climb beyond seemed welcome in the contrast, and I marveled no more at the frightened whispers of the Arkham people. There had been no house or ruin near, even in the old days when the people had been lonely and remote, and at twilight, dreading to repass that ominous spot, I walked circuitously. I just like the description of that. I walked circuitously. Or how's that? It's like a half word. Circuitously, yeah. Back to the town by the curving road on the south. I vaguely wished some clouds would gather for an odd timidity about the deep, sketchy voids above and crept into my soul. In the evening, I asked old people in Arkham about the blasted heath, and what was meant by that phrase, strange days. Oh shit! Which so many evasively muttered. I could not, however, get any good answers, except that all the mystery was much more recent than I had dreamed. It was not a matter of old legendary at all, but something within the lifetime of those who spoke. It had happened in the 80s, and a family had disappeared or was killed. Speakers would not be exact, and because they all told to pay no attention to old Amy Pierce's crazy tales, I sought him out the next morning, having heard that he lived alone in the ancient, tottering cottage, where the trees first began to get very thick. It was a fearsomely archaic place, and had begun to exude the faint miasmal odor which clings about houses that have stood too long. Only with persistent knocking could I rouse the H too long. Only with the H-man. And when he shuffled timidly to the door, I could tell he was not glad to see me. He was not so feeble as I had expected, but his eyes dropped in a curious way, and his unkempt clothing and white beard made him seem very worn and dismal. Not knowing just how he could best be launched on his tales, I feigned a matter of business, told him of my surveying, and asked vague questions about the district. He was far brighter and more educated than I had been led to think, but before I knew it, I had grasped quite as much of a subject as a man I had walked with in Arkham. He was not like the other rustics I had known in the sections where Rosevars were to be, But from him there was no protest at the miles of old wood and the farmland to be blotted out. So perhaps there would have been, had not his home lain outside the bounds of the future lake. Relief was all that he shewed, relief at the doom of the dark ancient valleys through which he had roamed all his life. There were better underwater opening his... there was better underwater now. Better underwater since the strange days. Oh, interesting. I like that. And with this opening, his husky voice sank low while his body leaned forward, and his right forefinger began to point shakily and impressively. Scraped and whispered on, I shivered again and again despite the summer day. Often I had to recall the speaker for ramblings, pierce out scientific points which he knew. Oh? Howdy do, King Chapter! Today we're doing a reading stream. I'm reading Lovecraft's tales because I'm bad at reading myself. Well, I find this more relaxing, basically, because I get distracted by myself. It's horrible, but it's fine. Anyway. Often I had to recall the speaker from ramblings pierce out scientific points which he knew only by a fading parrot memory of Professor's talk, or bridge over gaps, where his sense of logic and continuity broke down. When he was done, I did not wonder that his mind had snapped a trifle, or that the folk of Arkham would not speak much of the blasted heath. I hurried back before sunset to my hotel, unwilling to have the stars come out above me in the open, and the next day returned to Boston to give up my position. I cannot go into that dim chaos of old forest and slope again, or face another time that grey blasted heath where the black well yawned deep inside the tumbled bricks and stones. The reservoir will soon be built now, and all those elder secrets will be safe forever under watery fathoms. But even then, I do not believe I would like to visit that country. By night, at least, not when the sinister stars are out, and nothing could bribe me to drink the new city water of Arkham. So fucking... It all began, old Emmy said, with the meteorite. Before that time that had been no wild legends at all, since the witch trials, and even then these western woods were not feared half so much as the small island in the Miskatonic where the devil held court beside a curious stone altar, older than the Indians. These were not haunted woods, and their fantastic dusk was never terrible till the strange days. There had come that white noontide cloud, that string of explosions in the air, that pillar of smoke from the valley far in the wood. Oh? You know what? It is very much like a book club, to be fair. I like it. So this is a story where you're gonna... Oh wait, hang on. Let me just book finger that point. Are you gonna do SCP videos about falling off? No offense. I was just reading Lovecraft stories. I'm sorry. What? Oh my god, it would be though. Right? Oh, SCP videos? Well, I moved on from those things. I'm sorry. I used to do a lot of SCP videos because I had fun making them. They were really, really awesome. You know, they were a great time, honestly. I loved, I knew so much of the SCP stories. They were so fun to read. But, you know, all times pass. Now I make my own story videos. So, hell yeah. We definitely eat marshmallows. Get a candle, get a fire going. Let's eat some marshmallows. Yo, who's making the chalky milky? Who is making the chalky milky? Somebody better be making that chalky milk. I want it. I want that chalky milk with my marshmallow. It's gonna be tasty as hell. Oh, my channel? Well, it's pretty much arrived. So it's just really awesome detective horror stories. And they are fucking great. Gotta love it. Have you seen the Killer Clown video? I think it was published a few weeks ago. Still working on my main, right now video. And then there's the pumpkin, the harvester video. What else? I did Lore Explorer. That was a fun thing to really start off the more cinematic style of videos. Lore Explorer isn't any detective. He's more of a controlled, manipulated fellow by the host. It was a whole story. Just watch the videos. Explaining it is something else. But it was a fun time. I enjoyed it. And God, the music in those videos are so fucking nice. Especially the end. So good. It was a great story time. Honestly, oh my god. I still love it. I had fun making Lore Explorer. No, I'm not losing the page. I have my finger right on it. For real. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put my finger while I look at the chat. Yes, I won't. Thank you. You have candle. Alright, bless. You're hungry? Stop being hungry. You're making me hungry. How do you think I feel? SMH. Gonna be solo? Yeah, pretty much. Just making the solo videos and hoping to make some really awesome and amazing content. Again, yes, I enjoyed doing like prank videos and stuff, but I was always into doing more story-like videos because that sort of inspired me with YouTube. YouTube was like, for me, every time I saw anything YouTube related, there was always someone telling a story about something. Whether it was funny, whether it was horror, it was like in between. I loved it. I loved it all the time. Every time I saw whether they were doing it IRL acting out or they were doing it in-game, it was some of the most inspiring stuff to me. And I was like, oh man, maybe I could do it. And hey, look at me now. Quite a time. Yes. Oh, I'm only 5 years old. For. Oh, thanks, Mr. Frog. I love you too. Yeah. High five. Ah! Okay, anyway. Oh. Forgive me, Oni-chan. My hand's gone. Anyway. Hey, still have my finger on it. Yes, I am. I'm only 5 years old. Shall we? Hatsumi Miku. Fufu. I mean, Lovecraft. What the fuck? Who's Hatsumi Miku? Fuck off. Anyway. Man! Ah, dang it. Gosh dang it, guys. Don't fluster me. I'm still trying to make really, really awesome stories. That's why my latest video, you could call it procrastination, but it's not. I don't want to call it procrastination because I'm not holding off on anything. I've like added the story, I've added elements into it, but I really, really, really want to like make it so nice to watch. Like you click on that video and every single minute of that story being told is something that just you guys can watch. You can watch it repeatedly because that's how enjoyable it is. Like that kind of feel. And I'm really trying. Oh man, I played Fortnite. It's still so cool, but I haven't played Fortnite in a long while. But I did begin playing Fortnite, and I was like, yo, I might as well make some random videos from it. I didn't think about changing into a Fortnite career. I just started making those videos because I found playing Fortnite very, very fun. Especially with like the Spider-Man swing. If you ever saw the first Fortnite video, like fucking swinging across, and it was so sick. It was awesome. Oh yeah, I made like a bunch, like 5 or 6 Fortnite videos. All just funny moments, really. Or trying to think of like funny ways. I think the first one is the best though. Did I? I don't think I did. Not converting. I think I was playing Fortnite. Not converting though. But heck, Fortnite was also something like, it came and it went. It's not a bad thing. Just something like where you play a game, you find it pretty interesting, and then just keep going with it, honestly. Which is not bad at all. I like it, to be fair. Wow. But I mean, yeah, Minecraft. I still plan on doing more Minecraft content, cause that's what the detective is. Detective is cool. He's awesome. He's Pogus, and one of the best for real. I think I have my finger on this page too. How's Rezis? Rezis is good. He's doing his live streaming a lot more. He's definitely doing way more live streams, which is good. I'm glad he is. He's been holding off on it for too long. For real. He still plays Minecraft, Phasmophobia. Those are like the main 2 games I know he plays a lot. He's starting to play Roblox now, so more Roblox content for all of you. What? Oh. Oh. What? Cause it's me. What do you mean? This is me. Oh wait, which one am I? Am I the one sitting on the couch, or am I here? Which one am I? Hey there, everyone. It's me. Oh man, I forgot to add that last night onto the gaming of a Night of Scissors. How did I forget that? What the frick? Wait, deck? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what you mean. Did you mean like the Fortnite and Minecraft videos are good, or something else? Or just content in general? I like it. I think everyone's doing their own thing, which is really good. And honestly, about time, really. I swear. Been too long. Everyone's gotta start making the good content, making content they like. I always say this, I emphasize it the most, that content is to enjoy, for real. Gotta enjoy every bit of it. Oh, detective. Oh, yeah, hell yeah. Thank you. And hell, just like, I mean, think of this. Like, yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine about, like, oh man, like, I completed Night of Scissors. It was awesome. It was great. Now, there is, like, more games to play. I don't know which one to pick. I could do polls. Don't worry. It came across my mind. It's just, also picking that is a bit, like, meh. So I was like, instead, oh yeah, today I know what I'll do. I will heckin'. No, my friend said to me that, why don't you read your Lovecraft stories onto the stream since you haven't finished them? Because you're a lazy butt. I'm not, by the way. No, don't worry, I saved it. I saved it with my finger. Dark Shadow was gracious enough to tell me to fucking make sure I saved it. It's like right there. My finger's been on it for the just looking at the chat and everything. Don't worry, I'm still fine. I still remember the whole story. God, like the Lovecraft stories are so awesome. They really are. They're amazing, and I love them. But yeah, so they were just like, why don't you read the Lovecraft stories? And I, have going off and on the Lovecraft stories, not because they're boring, nothing like that, but because I'm bad at reading, concentrating, and going all the way. I did read the first book, which was all the short stories Lovecraft wrote in the beginning of his career. The second book, where he wrote a full fucking story. Amazing. It was great. It was fun. And now there's this one, which is like his... pretty much, I can say pretty confidently, this book is his, the moment he became H.P. Lovecraft, the godfather of horror. Like, this book is the one that originates it. It is, well, I don't like reading out loud because I'm shy, but like this is fine. It can be difficult, but I like to counter it with, honestly, reading out loud it's a blessing in disguise sort of thing. It's like, it is awful. If someone tells you to read out loud, you do not want to. You really, really despise reading out loud, because it's just, there's something so difficult about doing it, and also tiring, because you feel like, oh no, how are people, gonna be and stuff. And, it's always a little bit like, nervous even. But it's great. It's honestly a great time. And honestly with you guys, I feel way more confident and happy to do so. So yeah. Yeah, and it sounds really bad. Exactly. There's always those fears, but I say as long as you enjoy the story that you want to read out to someone, and if you want to, of course, then I say you do it with the mistakes, like me, and you absolutely read it till the end. You do not stop until you reach the end, and easily close the book, and hey, if you feel like doing it again, who's to stop you? Nobody. Just try and stop you, for real. Can I go be back next stream? But please play Fortnite Mirrors. You would love it. Oh shoot, is it out yet? Fuck, I forgot about Fortnite Mirrors. I really wanted Fortnite Mirrors. Calamity! No. And yeah, I will get back to Fortnite. I haven't. I have my precious Jesty, spooky heart that I play Fortnite with all the time. And I love her. She's amazing. She's absolutely beast gamer. As a duo, we are lethal. We are hilariously lethal. That's how fucking badass we are. And yeah, like, wait, hang on. Fortnite Mirrors? Where is Fortnite Mirrors? I'm searching up now just to see where it's at. Wait, is it out yet? I know they have the whole Marvel thing coming. Reading out loud for me is yeah, I get that. Honestly, that's so real, Mystic Frog. To be fair, that's very fair. I'm not the talkative in the first place, so reading is codes. Yeah, yep, absolutely. Me? You think I'm a reader? Hell no! Dude, I'm not read out loud. I'm barely reading on my own. I'm so bad. And you guys hear me reading, and you can hear when I make mistakes, but it's definitely, I have that problem. I need to fix it, and as soon as I do, hey, As long as nothing stops you. That's what I say. Heck yeah. Absolutely. All the way. I believe it. Oh, Halloween. Okay, yeah. Yeah, again, I'll, like I said, if I get to it, I'll check it out, and again, we have so many horror games to play, so it'll be quite an October. Oh, but let's be real, viewers. It'll be quite a fucking day every day. Horror doesn't stop on this channel. Heck no. We are the kings and queens of horror. That is what we live for, what we thrive for. And that we are confident in. I believe it. Also, reading can just dry your throat. I am dying. I will, King's Chapter, I will. Okay, fine. I promise I will play Fortnitemares when it's released for your live stream. I will do it. I will do it. I promise. Pinky promise. My ultimate promise is always the pinky promise, not to be taken lightly. Yeah, I'll do it. It will be me and Bob. We'll have fun. I'll try and beat the fuck out of Ellie to make sure she downloads Fortnite, even though she said she never would. But hey now, can't fucking say no. Who do you think I am? You know? Oh yeah, of course. Ah! That was nothing. Ah! I mean, what the fuck? SMH. Oh. Yeah, this alley. Guys, if Allie says no to Fortnite, I want you to beat the shit out of her! Yeah, there we go. Anyway. Pinky 5-year-old. For real, always. Why? Yeah. Okay, Dark Hannah! You harass me more, do you? SMH! Swear to God. Sorry, you guys bullying me. Kurabi! They're bullying me! Beat them up! Anyway. And by night, all Arkham had heard of... See, I had it pinpointed. Screw you. Of the great rock that fell out of the sky and embedded itself in the ground beside the well at the Nahum Gardner place. Also, just one last thing. It also depends what kind of reader you are. Most people say, oh, you should read fast. Oh, you should read this. But me personally, I take my fucking time to read. I read so slowly. I read with the thought that I'm in the story. Because, God, when you're in that fucking mindset, oh my God, it's so nice. And especially Lovecraft stories, you will be fucking scared imagining all the shit. Yeah, you bully me! But it's okay. I give you, you can have hot Chucky. You can have hot Chucky Milky. And so can the rest of you, pricks. Anyway. Ah, Devastator, welcome, we're reading! So shut the fuck up! Anyway. That was the house which had stood where the blasted heath was to come. The trim white Nahum Gardner house amidst its fertile gardens and orchards. I mean, take your time to get... Yeah, till you to get to the story. Yeesh. I will. I promise. Yeah, everyone shut the fuck up! Sit down! And have snacks. And enjoy. Dude, Mystic Frog, you so real. Me too. But with Lovecraft stories, I try my utmost. I literally, like, fucking try to nail my ass down to just, like, concentrate on the story. You have to really try, especially if you really want to, you know, be into the story and everything. It's not easy. It is hard. It comes with things, but I think that if you try, and even if that doesn't work, I think there's always a next time. But there's always a way for you to And especially in the way you want to learn about the story. Whether you do just want to hear the main points of it, you know, or you do want to unravel the story by reading or even listening in a podcast, or you know what, not even check it out or read it at all. Instead, imagine how the story would go, because nothing beats doing these kinds of things. After all, hey, viewers, these stories are based on imagination alone. So, imagining what these stories are about, isn't that quite an idea? Hell yeah. Nahum had come to town to tell people about the stone, and had dropped in at Amy Pierce's on the way. Amy was 40 then, and all the queer things were fixed very strongly in his mind. He and his wife had gone with the 3 professors from Miskatonic University, who hastened out the next morning to see the weird visitor from unknown stellar space, and had wondered why Nahum had called it so large the day before. It had shrunk, Nahum said, as he pointed out the big brownish mound above the ripped earth and charred grass near the archaic well swept in his front yard. But the wise men answered that the stones do not shrink, its heat lingered persistently, and Nahum declared it had glowed faintly at night. Oh yeah, King Chapter, absolutely. I do. Whispers. I shall. You'll see. That's why I really want to improve my videos, because I have a lot of stuff planned, and I hope I do everything justice. I ask nothing but all your support, and with that alone, I will do nothing but try my best. The professors tried it with the geologist's hammer and found it was oddly soft. It was in truth so soft as if to be plastic, and they gouged rather than chipped a specimen to take back to the college for testing. They took it to an old pail borrowed from Nahum's kitchen, for even the small piece refused to grow cool. On the trip back, they stopped at Amy's to rest, and they seemed thoughtful when Mrs. Pierce remarked that the fragment was growing smaller and burning the bottom of the pail. Truly, it was not large. Perhaps they had taken less than they thought. Oh, absolutely, King Chapter. It's so funny, though. Like, guys, isn't it so funny that when we, talk as we are how we are. Whether we're confident, whether we're silly, whatever. And when we read, it becomes challenging. And we never realize it until we read out loud. Just gives you something to just smile about, wondering like, hey, like it makes you just almost instantly realize I have places to improve. And it's not always about, oh, I gotta improve, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. I think that you can improve every day. You can improve when you feel like you have to the most. Instead, I feel like that you can just realize things, and knowing them is enough. I think when you know that there is something that you have that isn't all there, you can, by yourself, improve it instantly. Or you could slowly but surely get there and find out why it is the way it is. For real. There's no doubt in it. You want to leave, but you can't? What do you mean? You gotta get... do you gotta go? If you gotta go, don't worry. The stream is still here. The stream is always here. The day after that, all this was in June of 82. All the UFO sightings were in 82. The professors had trooped out again in the great excitement. As they passed Amis, they told him about what queer things the specimen had done, and how it had faded wholly away when they put it in a glass beaker. The beaker had gone too, and the wise men talked of the strange stone's affinity for silicon. It had acted quite unbelievably in that well-ordered laboratory, doing nothing at all and shewing no occluded gases were heated on charcoal, being wholly negative in the borax speed, and soon proving itself above non-volatile at any producible temperature, including that of the oxyhydrogen blowpipe. On an anvil it appeared highly malleable, and in the dark cool. It soon had college in state of real excitement, and when upon heating before the spectroscope, it displayed shining bands unlike any known of colors of the normal spectrum. There was much breathless talk of new elements, bizarre optical properties, and other things which puzzled men of science are wont to say when faced by the unknown. See? Right there. Hot as it was, they tested in a crucible with all the proper regiments. Water did nothing. Hydraulic acid was the same. Nitric acid and even aqua regia merely hissed and spattered against its torrid invulnerability. Amy had difficulty in recalling all these things, but recognized some solvents as I mentioned them in the unusual order of use. There were ammonia and caustic soda and alcohol and either noxious carbon disulfide and a dozen others, but although the weight grew steadily less as time passed, and the fragments seemed to be slightly cooling, there was no change in the solvent to shew that they had attacked the substance at all. It was metal through beyond a doubt. It was magnetic for one thing, and its immersion in the acid sulfate. There seemed to be faint traces of Windmaniston figures found on meteoric iron. When the cooling had grown very considerable, the testing was carried on in glass, and it was in a glass beaker that they left all the clips of the original fragment during the work. The next morning, both ships and in the video you were, I am the father, and you came back, you're 5, and you're a dad. I'm a father? What the frick? Or unless you meant the faith game where I was a priest. I was a father, but a different kind of father. For real. Beaker were gone without trace, and only a charred spot marked the place on the wooden shelf where there had been. All this the professors told Amy as they paused at his door, and once more he went with them to see the stony messenger from the stars. Then, though this time his wife did not accompany him, it had most certainly shrunk, and even the sober professors could not doubt the truth of what they saw. All around the dwindling brown lump near the well was a vacant space, except where the earth had carved in, whereas it had been a good 7 feet across the day before. It had now scarcely 5. It was still hot, and the sages studied its surface curiously as they detached another and large piece with hammer and chisel. They gouged deeply this time, and they pried away the smaller masses. They saw that the core of the thing was not quite homogeneous. They had uncovered what seemed to be the side of a large, colored globule embedded in the substance. The color, which resembled some of the bands in the meteor's strange spectrum, was almost impossible to describe. It was only by analogy that they called it color at all. Its texture was glossy, and upon tapping it appeared to promise both brittleness and hollowness. One of the professors gave it a smart blow with a hammer, and it burst with a nervous little pop. Nothing was emitted, and all trace of the thing vanished with puncturing it left behind a hollow spectral space about 3 inches across, and all thought it probable that the others would be discovered as enclosing substance wasted away. Conjecture was vain, so after a futile attempt to find additional globules by drilling, the seekers left again with their new specimen, which proved, however, as baffling in the laboratory as its predecessor had been. Aside from being plastic, having heat, magnetism, and slight luminosity. Oh, that was interesting. I think it's okay. Conjecture was vain, so after a futile attempt to find additional globules by drilling, the seekers left again with their new specimen, which proved, however, as baffling in the laboratory as... Oh, wait, I read that. Oh, wait, did I read it? As the second combined with the musical, as a result, it prevented no identifying features. However, at the end of the test, the college scientists were forced to own that the buffer. Yeah, I saw that it said reconnecting. Yeah, it was I saw the reconnecting, so I was like, oh. And then I think it's back. Are we back? No, that was me. That was me. Shall we? Shall we, everyone? I think I'm gonna have a little snack. No, it's not marshmallow. Oh! Where is the snack? Getting too comfy. Oh, they're drawing. No. That was... Oh, God. Hang on. That was the wonderful Alley Cat, 01134. She is a wonderful artist, a absolute blast, and a badass at drawing. For real. When I asked for her to draw me my new character of my channel, I thought, you know, the cultist, the days of the old videos, I'll be moving on. For real. So I did. And this is the character. He is not Detective Sxar, but he is just, simply put, the detective. The clothing was as far as I got. The lore, not much. Maybe one day. Retired Detective Sxar. So true. But that's right, Detective Sxar is not retired. He will always be the detective that solves more and more cases. Cannot place it. It was nothing of this earth, but a piece of great outside. And as such, dowered with outside properties and obedient to outside laws. Just like me! Sounds like me they're talking about. That night, there was a thunderstorm, and when the professors went out to Nahum's the next day, they met with a bitter disappointment. The stone, magnetic as it had been, must have some peculiar electrical property, for it had drawn the lightning, as Nahum said, with a singular persistence 6 times within an hour. The farmer saw the lightning strike as the furrow in the front yard, but when the storm was over, nothing remained but a ragged pit by the ancient well swept, half coated with caved-in earth. Digging had borne no fruit. But the scientists verified that the fact of the utter vanishment, the failure was total, so that nothing was left to do but go back to the laboratory and test again. The disappearing fragment left carefully caused in lead, in lead. That fragment lasted a week, at the end of which nothing of value had been learned of it. Where it had gone, no residue was left behind, and in time the professors left scarcely sure they had indeed seen with walking eyes the cryptic vestige of the fathomless gulfs outside, the lone weird message from other universes and other realms of matter, force, and entity. Again, so cool! Like, dang it! Really cool. And I love it. So cool. Alright. As was natural, the Arkham papers made collegiate sponsoring and sent reporters to talk with Nahum Gardner and his family. At least one Boston daily also sent a scribe, and Nahum quickly became a kind of local celebrity. He was a lean, genial person of about 50, living with his wife and 3 sons of the pleasant farmstead in the valley. He and Amy exchanged visits frequently, as did their wives, and Amy had nothing but praise for him after all these years. He seemed slightly proud of the notice he placed, had attracted and talked often. The meteorite in the succeeding weeks, that July and August were hot. July and August are hot. And Nahum worked hard at his haying in the 10-acre pasture across Chapman's Brook, his rattling wain wearing deep roots in the shadowy lanes between the labor tired him more than it had in other years, and he felt that age was beginning to tell on him. Ah! What the frick? No! Not mother! Don't look at me! Ah! Gosh dang it! Oh man! Hector! Oh. I try my best. Sweats profusely. Then fell the time of fruit and harvest. The pears and apples slowly ripened, and Nahum vowed that his orchards were prospering as never before. The fruit was growing to phenomenal size. Phenomenal size! Even Lovecraft, man. Ah! Thank you! Oh, yeah. Distractions. See, even Lovecraft was a fan of using phenomenal. I'm telling you, I was a fucking prodigy. Still am. Anyway, size in unwonted gloss, and in such opulence that extra barrels were ordered to handle the future crop. But with the ripening came sore disappointment. For of all that gorgeous array of specimen lushness, not one single jot was fit to eat. Into the fine flavour of the pears and apples had crept a stealthy bitterness and thickishness, so that even the smallest of bites induced... I see you're timing! Gosh dang it! Stop it! It's making me lose my awesome momentum. Anyway. Also, Lovecraft is okay to read because it's public domain material now. SMH, of course Lovecraft is awesome to read! I'll read it anyway! Lovecraft! You're the greatest! Fuck you other artists that use copyright shit! I like Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe. They're both my goats. Edgar Allan Poe. And the fact that Lovecraft was inspired to do stories by Edgar Allan Poe. Talk about awesome prodigies. Birds of a feather flock together after all. Anyway, induced a lasting disgust. It was the same with the melons and tomatoes, and Nahum sadly saw that his entire crop was lost. Quick to connect events, he declared that the meteorite had poisoned the soil. Assumptions are never good as a scientist, by the way. So if you're thinking of doing science, never assume things. That will be your downfall. And thanked heaven the most of the other crops were in the upland, not along the road. Winter came early and was very cold. Amy saw Nahum less often than the usual and observed that he had begun to look worried. The rest of his family, too, seemed to have grown taciturn and were far from steady in their church-going or their attendance at the various social events of the countryside. For this reserve or melancholy no cause could be found, though all the household confessed now and then to poor health and a feeling of vague disquiet. Nahum put your finger there. Alright, goody goods. That's a H. Gosh dang all of you! Gosh dang all of you! And I am not a little cat. I'm a big one. Meow. Garbage. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Ah! Ah! Okay, we're back. Hello. Choppa. Nahum himself gave the most definite statement of anyone when he said he was disturbed about certain footprints in the snow. Oh my god, the story's turning a fucking awesome turn, and I love it. God, I love Lovecraft. They were the usual winter prints of red squirrels, white rabbits, and foxes. But the brooding farmer professed to see something not quite right about their nature and arrangement. He was never specific, but appeared to think that they were not as characteristic of the anatomy and the habits of squirrels and rabbits and foxes as they ought to be. But Amy listened without interest to see his talk until one night when he drove past Nahum's house in his sleigh on the way back from Clark's Corners. There had been a moon, and a rabbit had run across the road, and the leaps of that rabbit were longer than either Amy or his horse liked. The latter, indeed, had almost run away when he brought up by a firm rein. Thereafter, Nahum's tales more respect. and wondered why the gardener's dogs seemed so cowed and quivering every morning. They had it developed nearly lost the spirit to bark. In February, the McGregor boys from Meadow Hill were out shooting woodchucks, and not far from the gardener place bagged a very peculiar specimen. The proportions of its body seemed slightly altered in a queer way impossible to describe, while its face had taken on an expression which no one ever saw in a woodchuck before. The boys were genuinely frightened and threw the thing away at once, so that only their grotesque tales of it ever reached the people of the countryside. But the shying of the horses near Nahum's house had now become an acknowledged thing, and all the basis for a cycle of whispered legend was fast taking form. People vowed that the snow melted faster around Nahum's than it did anywhere else, and early in March there was an odd discussion in Potter's general store at Clark's Corners. Steve and Rice had driven past Gardner's in the morning and had noticed the skunk cabbages coming up through the mud by the woods across the road. Also, there's a lot of things flashing in my head about the way this is all described, because the flashes I'm getting are literally a lot of references in other shit. So reading this is really, really fucking cool. Ugh, wow. Never were things of such size seen before, and they held strange colors that could be put into any words. Their shapes were monstrous, and the horse had snorted at an odor which struck Stephen as wholly unprecedented. That afternoon, several persons drove past to see the abnormal growth, and all agreed that plants of that kind ought to never sprout in a healthy world. The bad fruit of the fall before that was freely mentioned, and it went from mouth to mouth that there was poison in Nahum's ground. Of course it was the meteorite, and remembering how strange the men from the college had found that stone to be, several farmers spoke about the matter to them. That stone to be several... Oh, yeah. One day they paid Nahum a visit, but having no love of wild tales and folklore were very conservative in what they inferred. The plants were certainly odd, but all skunk cabbages are more or less odd in shape and odor and hue. Perhaps some mineral element from the stone had entered the soil, and it would soon be washed away. But as for the footprints and frightened horses, of course this was mere country talk, which such a phenomenon as the aerolite would be certain to start. There was really nothing for serious men to do in cases of wild gossip, for superstitious rustics will say and believe anything. And so all through the strange days the professor stayed away in contempt. Only one of them, when given 2 files of dust for analysis in a police job over a year and a half later, recalled that the queer color of that skunk cabbage had been very like one of the anomalous bands of light shown by the meteor fragment in the college spectroscope, and light the brittle globule found embedded in the stone from the abyss. The same in this analysis case gave the same odd bands at first, though later they lost the property. The trees budded prematurely around Nahum names, and at night they swayed ominously in the wind. Name's second son, Thaddeus, a lad of 15, swore that they swayed also when there was no wind, but even the gossips would not credit this. Certainly, however, restlessness was in the air. The entire Gardner family developed the habit of stealthily listening, though not for any sound which they could consciously name. The listening was indeed rather a product of moments when consciousness seemed half to slip away. Unfortunately, such moments increased week by week till it became common speech that something was wrong with all Nahum's folks. When the early saxifrage came out, it had another strange color, not quite like that of the skunk cabbage, but plenty related and equally unknown to anyone who saw it. Nahum took some blossoms to Arkham and shewed them to the editor of the Gazette, and that dignitary did no more than write a humorous article about them, in which the dark fears of rustics was held up to polite and ridicule. It was a mistake of Nahum's to tell a stolid city man about the way the great overgrown mourning cloak butterflies behaved in connection with saxifrages. April brought a kind of madness to the country folk, and began that disease of the road, names which led to its ultimate abandonment. It was the vegetation. All the orchid trees blossomed forth in strange colors, and through the stony soil of the yard and adjacent pasturage, these sprang up a bizarre growth which only a botanist could connect with the proper flora of the region. No sane, wholesome colors were everywhere to be seen, except in the green grass and the leafage, but everywhere primary tone without. Where did my page go? Without place among the known tints of earth. Wait, was that right? No same colors wherever to be except in the seen grass and leafage, but everywhere those hectic and prismatic variants of some diseased underlying primary tone with a place among the known hints of earth. The Dutchman's breeches became a thing of sinister menace, and the bloodroots grew insolent in their chromatic provision. Amy and the gardeners thought the most of the colors had a sort of haunting familiarity, and decided that they reminded one of the brittle globule in the meteor. Nahum plowed and sowed the 10-acre pasture and the upland lot, but they did nothing with the land around the house. He knew it would be of no use, and hoped that the summer's strange growths would draw all the poison from the soil. He was prepared for almost anything now, and had grown used to the sense of something near him waiting to be heard. The shunning of his house by neighbors told on him, of course, but it told on his wife more. The boys were better off being at school each day, but they could not help being frightened by the gossip. Thaddeus, an especially sensitive youth, suffered the most. In May, the insects came, and Nahum's place became a nightmare of buzzing and crawling. Most of the creatures seemed not quite unusual, or quite usual in their aspects and motions, and their nocturnal habits contradicted all former experience. The gardeners took to watching at night, watching in all directions at random for something. They could not tell what. It was then that they all owned that Thaddeus had been right about the trees. Mrs. Gardner was the next to see it from the window. As she watched the swollen boughs of a maple against a moonlight sky, the boughs surely moved and there was no wind. It must be the sap. Strangeness had come into everything growing now. It was none of Nahum's family at all who made the next discovery. Familiarity had dulled them, and what they could not see was glimpsed by a timid windmill salesman from Bolton who drove by one night in ignorance of the country legends. What he told in Arkham was given a short paragraph in the Gazette, and it was there that all the farmers, Nahum included, saw it first. The night had been dark, and the buggy lamps faint, but a farm in the valley, which everyone knew from the account, must be in Nahum's. The darkness had been less thick. A dim, though distinct luminosity seemed to inhere in all the vegetation, grass, leaves, and blossoms alike, while at one moment a detached piece of the phosphorescence appeared to stir furtively in the yard near the barn. The grass had so far untouched, and the cows were freely pastured in the lot near the house. But toward the end of the May, the milk began to be bad. Then Nahum had the cows driven to the uplands, after which the trouble ceased. Oh, okay. Don't worry, guys, I'll be right back after these short messages. Hello, hello, hello! What's all this then? It's me, I'm back. I'm sorry. Anyway, okay. Now where was I? Oh yes. Not long after this, the change in grass and leaves became apparent to the eye. All the verdure was going grey, and developing a highly singular quality of brittleness. Amy had now the only person who ever visited the place, and his visits were becoming the fewer and fewer. When school closed, the gardeners were virtually cut off from the world, and sometimes let Amy do their errands in the town. They were failing curiously, both physically and mentally, and no one was surprised when the news of Mrs. Gardner's madness stole around. It happened in June, about the anniversary of the meteor's fall, and the poor woman screamed about things in the air which could not be described. In her raving there was not a single specific noun, but only verbs and pronouns. Things moved and changed and fluttered, and the ears tingled to impulses which were not wholly sounds. Something was taken away. She was being drained of something. Something was fastening itself on her. That ought to be. Something must make it keep off. Nothing was ever still in the night. The walls and windows shifted. Nahum did not send her to the country asylum, but let her wander about the house as long as she was harmless to herself and others. Even her expression changed. He did nothing, but when the boys grew afraid of her, and Thaddeus nearly fainted at the way she made faces at him, she decided to keep her locked in the attic. Oh my god. By July, she had ceased to speak and crawled on all fours. And before the month was over, Nahum got the mad notion that she was slightly luminous in the dark, as he now clearly saw was the case. And with the nearby vegetation, it was a little before this that the horses had stampeded. Something had aroused them in the night, and the neighing and kicking in their stalls had been terrible. There seemed virtually nothing to do calm them, and when Nahum opened the stable door, they all bolted out like frightened and woodland deer. Woodland deers? Like shuck-a-nuck-a-nuck-a? I'm sorry. It took a week to track all four, and when they all found they were to be quite useless and unmanageable, something had snapped in their brains, and each one had to be spot for its own good. Nahum borrowed a horse from Amy for his haying, but found it would not approach the barn. It sheared, balked, and whined. In the end, he could not do anything but drive it into the yard while the men used their strength to get the heavy wagon near enough the hayloft for convenient pitching, and all the while the vegetation was turning grey and brittle. Even the flowers, whose hues had been so strange, were greying now, and the fruit goldenrod bloomed grey and distorted. But the roses and zinnias and hollyhocks in the front yard were such blasphemous-looking things that Nahum's oldest boy, Zenas, cut them down. The strangely puffed insects died about that time, even the bees that had left their hives and taken into the woods. By September, all the vegetation was fast crumbling to grayish powder, and Nahum feared that the trees would die before the poison was out of the soil. His wife now had spells of terrific screams, and the boys were in constant state of nervous tension. They shunned people now, and when school opened the boys did not go. But it was Amy, on one of his rare visits, who first realized that the well water was no longer good. It was an evil taste. It was not exactly fetid, nor exactly salty. And Amy advised his friend to dig another well on higher ground to use till the soil was good again. Nahum, however, ignored the warning, for he had by that time become callous to strange and unpleasant things. He and the boys continued to use the tainted supply, drinking it was listlessly and mechanically as they ate their meager and ill-cooked meals and digged their thankless and monotonous chores through the aimless days. There was something of stolid resignation about them all, as if they walked half in another world between lines of nameless guards to a certain and familiar doom. Thaddeus went mad in September after a visit to the well. He had gone with a pail and had come back with empty-handed, shrieking and waving in his arms, something lapsing into an insane titter or a whisper about the moving colors down there. Town in one family was pretty bad, but Nahum was very brave about it. He let the boy run about for a week until he began stumbling and hurting himself. Then he shut him in the attic room across the hall from his mother's. The way they screamed at each other, from behind their locked doors was very terrible, especially to little Merwin, who fancied they talked in some terrible language that was not of earth. Merwin was getting frightfully imaginative, and his restlessness was worse from after the shutting away of the brother who had been his greatest playmate. Almost at the same time, the mortality among the livestock commenced. Poultry turned greyish and died very quickly, their meat found dry and noisome upon cutting. Hogs grew inordinarily fat, then suddenly began to undergo loathsome changes which no one could explain. Their meat was of course useless, and Nahum was at his wit's end. No rural veterinary would approach his place, and the city veterinary from Arkham was openly baffled. The swine began growing grey and brittle and failing to the pieces before they died, and their eyes and muzzles developed singular alterations. It was very inexplicable, for they had never been fed from the tainted vegetation. But then something struck the cows. Certain areas or something the whole body would be uncannily shriveled or compressed about the atrocious collapses, or disintegrations were common. It was the last stages, and death was always the result. There would be a graying and turning brittle like that, which beset the hogs. There could be no question of poison, for all the cases occurred in a locked and undisturbed barn. No bites of prowling things could have brought the virus, for what live beast of earth can pass through solid obstacles? It must be only natural disease, yet what disease would wreak such results was beyond any mind's guessing. When the harvest came, poultry were dead, and the dogs had run away. These dogs, 3 in number, had all vanished one night, and never heard of again. The 5 cats had left some time before, and their going was scarcely noticed, since there seemed to be no mice, and only Mrs. Gardner had made pets of the graceful felines. I mean, of course, cats! Cats are always the winners. On the 19th of October, Nahum staggered into Amy's house with the hideous news. The death had come to poor Thaddeus in his attic room, and it had come in a way which could not be told. Nahum had dug a grave in the railed family plot behind the farm, and had put therein where he found There could have been nothing from the outside, for the small barred window and locked door were intact, but it was much as it had been in the barn. Amy and his wife consoled the stricken man as best they could, but shuddered as they did so. Stark terror seemed to cling round the gardeners and all that they touched, but very presence of one in the house was a breath from regions unnamed and unnameable. Amy accompanied Nahum home with the greatest reluctance, and did what he might to calm the hysterical sobbing of little Mervyn. Zenas needed no calming. He had come of late to do nothing but stare into space and obey what his father told him, and Amy thought his fate was very merciful. Now and then Mervyn's screams were finally answered faintly from the attic in response to an inquiring look. Nahum said that his wife was getting very feeble when night approached. Amy managed to get away, for not even friendship could make him stay in that spot when the faint glow of the vegetation began, and the trees may or may not have swayed without wind. It was very lucky his mind was bent over so slightly, but it had been able to connect and reflect upon all the portents around him. He must inevitably have turned into a total maniac. But in the twilight he hastened home, the screams of the mad woman and the nervous child ringing horribly in his ears. Hey, Ethan! Welcome! Today is a bit of a different type of stream. It's the stream of reading, and you are welcomed. We're reading Lovecraft stories because I'm bad at reading myself, so I thought, hey, why don't I read to other people instead, so that I can get through it, because I'm bad at reading. Heck yeah. So glad to see you. It's been a while. For real. Did you watch my Knife Scissors stream? It's hilarious. Check it out. Fun time. 3 days later, Nahum lurched into Amy's kitchen in the early morning, and in the absence of his host, stammered out a desperate tale once more, while Pierce listened in a clutching fright. It was little Mervyn this time. He was gone. He had gone out late at night, and with a lantern and pail for water had never come back. He'd been going to pieces for days and hardly knew what he was about. Screamed at everything. There had been a frantic shriek from the yard then, and before the father could get to the door, the boy was gone. There was no glow from the lantern he had taken, and of the child himself no trace at the time. Nahum thought the lantern and pail were gone too, but when dawn came, and the man had plodded back from the all-night search of the woods and fields, he had found some very curious things near the well. I fucking knew the well had something to do with it, especially for little Mervyn. Oh my god, that's so cool. I missed the last stream, sorry. No, I apologize. It was late at night, if I remember, so, late at night. Everyone's gonna be around. My new puppy is watching the stream. Yay! Heck yeah! Tell him hypnotized him with phenomenalism is forever. For a little pupper. Little pupper. Give you lots of love. It is well deserved, pupper. Especially if it's watching my stream. You get love! And the fists of awesomeness! Oh, well, and love, I guess. But yeah, fucking, got it. There was a crushed and apparently somewhat melted mass of iron which had certainly been the lantern, while a bent bale and twisted iron hoops beside it, both half-fused, seemed to hint at the remnants of the pail. Though that was all. Nahum was past imagining. Mrs. Pierce was blank, and Amy, when he had reached home and heard the tale, could give no guess. Mervyn was gone, and there'd be no use in telling the people who shunned all gardeners now. No use either in telling the city people at Arkham who laughed at everything. Thad was gone, and now Merwin was gone. Something was creeping, and creeping, and waiting to be seen and felt and heard. Nahum would go soon, and he wanted Amy to look after his wife. His wife! And Zenas, if they survived. Okay. If they survived him. It must be all a judgment of some sort, though he could not fancy what for, since he had always walked uptightly in the Lord's ways. So far as he knew, for over 2 weeks, Amy saw nothing of Nahum, and then worried about the might have happened. He overcame his fears, and paid the gardener's place a visit. There was no smoke from the great chimney, and for a moment the visitor was apprehensive of the worst. The aspect of the whole farm was shocking. Greyish withered grass and leaves on the ground, vines falling in brittle wreckage from the archaic walls and gables, and great bare trees claying up at the grey. The November sky with a studied malevolence which Amy could not but feel had come from some subtle change in the tilt of the branches. But Nahum was alive. After all, he was weak and laying on a couch in the low-ceiled kitchen, but perfectly conscious and able to give simple orders to Zenas. The room was deadly cold, and as Amy visibly shivered, the host shouted huskily to Zenas for more wood. Wood indeed was sorely needed, since the cavernous fireplace was unlit and empty, with a cloud of soot blowing about in the chill wind that came from the chimney. Presently, Nahum asked him if the extra wood had made him any more comfortable, and then Amy saw what happened. The stoutest cord had broken at last, and the hapless farmer's mind was proof against more sorrow. Questioning tactfully, Amy could get no clear data at all about the missing Zenas. In the well he lives in the well, and was all the clouded father would say. There were flashed across the visitor's mind a sudden thought of the mad wife, and he changed his line of inquiry. "Nabby, why, here she is," was the surprised response of the poor Nahum, and Amy soon saw that he must search for himself. Leaving the harmless babbler on the couch, he took the keys from their nail beside the door and climbed the creaking stairs to the attic. It was very close and noisome up there, and no sound could be heard in any direction of the 4 doors in sight. Only one door was locked, and on this he tried various keys on the ring he had taken. The third proved the right one, and after some fumbling, Amy threw open the low white door. It was quite dark inside, for the window was small and half obscured by the crude wooden bars, and Amy could see nothing at all from the wide planked floor. The stench was beyond enduring, and before proceeding further he had to retreat to another room and return with his lungs filled with breathable air. When he did enter, he saw something dark in the corner, and upon seeing it more clearly, he screamed outright. While he screamed, he thought a momentary cloud eclipsed in the window, and a second later he felt himself brushed as if some hateful current of vapor, strange colors danced before his eyes. And had not a present horror numbed him, he would have thought of the globule in the meteor that the geologist's hammer had shattered, and of the morbid vegetation that had sprouted in spring, as if he had thought of only the blasphemous monstrosity which confronted him, which all too clearly had shared the nameless fate of young Thaddeus and the livestock. But the terrible thing about this horror was that it was very, slowly and perceptibly moved as it continued to crumble. Amy would give me no added particulars to the scene, but the shape in the corner does not appear in his tale as a moving object. There are things which cannot be mentioned, and what is done in common humanity is sometimes cruelly judged by the law. I gathered there was no moving thing was left in that attic room, and that to leave anything capable of motion there would have been a deed so monstrous as to damn any accountable being to eternal torment. Anyone but a stolid farmer would have fainted or gone mad, but Amy walked conscious through that low doorway and looked the accursed secret behind him. There would be Nahum to deal with now. He must be fed and tended and removed to some place where he could be cared for. Commencing his descent of the dark stairs, Amy heard a thud below him. He even thought a scream had been suddenly choked off, and recalled nervously the clammy vapor which brushed by him in the frightful room above. Which presence had his cry and entry started up, halted by some vague fear he heard. Still further sounds below. Undoubtedly there was some sort of heavy bragging, and a most detestably sticky noise, as of some fiendish and unclean species of suction, with an authoritative sense crowded to feverish heights. He thought uncountably of what he had seen upstairs. Good God! What eldritch dream world was this into which he had blundered? He dared neither backward nor forward, but stood trembling at the black curve of the boxed-in staircase. Every trifle of the scene burned into his brain, the sound, the sense of dread, expectancy, the darkness, steepness of the narrow steps, and merciful heaven, the faint but unmistakable luminosity of all the Woodstock in sight, steps, sides, exposed laths, and beams alike. Then there burst forth a frantic whinny from Amy's horse outside, followed at once by a clatter which told of the frenzied runaway. In another moment, horse and buggy had gone beyond earshot, leaving the frightened man in the dark stairs to guess what had sent them. But that was not all. There had been another sound out there, a sort of liquid splash, water. It must have been the well. He had left Hero untied near it, and a buggy wheel must have brushed the coping and knocked in the stone. And still the pale phosphorence glowed in that detestably ancient woodwork. God, how old the house was! Most of it's built before 1670, and the gambrel roof not later than 1730. A feeble scratching on the floor downstairs now sounded distinctly, and Amy's grip tightened on a heavy stick he had picked up in the attic for some purpose. Slowly nerving himself, he finished his descent and walked boldly toward the kitchen. But he did not complete the walk, because what he sought was no longer there. It would have come to meet him, and it was still alive after a fashion. Whether it had crawled or whether it had been dragged by an external force, Amy could not say. But the death dragged by an external force? Amy could not say. But the death had been at it. Everything had happened in the last half hour, but collapse, graying, and disintegration were already far advanced. There was a horrible brittleness, and dry fragments were scaling off. Amy could not touch it, but looked horrifiedly into the distorted parody that had been a face. What was it, Liam? What was it? He whispered, and cleft-building lips were just about to crackle out a final answer. Nothing. The color. It burns. Color and wit. But it burns. It lived in the well. I had seen it. A kind of smoke. Just like the flowers last spring. The well shone at night. Thad and Murney and Xanis. Everything alive. Sucking the life out of everything. In that stone. It must come in that stone. Pissed in the whole place. Don't know what it wants. That round thing. Them men from the college dug out in the stone. They smashed it. It was the same color. Just the same like the flowers and plants. But must have been more of them. Seeds. They growed. I seen it at the first time this week. Must have got strong on Xanis. He was a big boy full of life. It beats. And then gets ya. Burns ya up in the well water. You was right about that. An evil water. Xanis never came back from the well. Can't get away. It runs you. You know something's coming, but 'tain't no use. I seen it. Time and angst. Sankt Xanis was took. Where's Navi's Amy? My head's no good. Don't know how long Sankt I fed her. It'll get her if we ain't careful. Just a color. Her face is getting to heave that color sometimes towards night. And it burns and it sucks. It comes from some place where some things ain't as they is here. Some of them professors said he was right. Look at Emmy! It'll do something more! Sucks the life out. But that was all. That which spoke could speak no more, because it had completely caved in. Emmy laid a red-cheeked tablecloth over what was left, and reeled out the back door into the fields. He glimpsed the slope to the 10-acre pasture, and stumbled home by the north road and the woods. He could not pass that well from which his horse had run away. He had looked at it through the window, but had seen no stone was missing from the rim. Then the lurching buggy had no dislodged anything. After all, the splash had been something else, something which went into the well after it had done with poor Nahum. When Amy reached his house, the horse and buggy had arrived. Before him had thrown his wife into fits of anxiety. Holy moly! Also, hang on, guys. I gotta go take a piss! Oh! Thank you, phone. Okay. Bookmarked ready. Now let me go take a wee after all of that thinking. But holy shit, oh my god, it scared the fuck out of me, I'll be honest. That's why I say it's always so creepy to read Lovecraft stories. They're so good! And they know how to do it. He knew how to do it. Anyway, be right back. Piss break! Good day, good day! I'm back from the piss. Ugh! Wow. Alright. Everyone ready? Get your marshmallows back. We're not done yet. Anyway. Reassuring her without explanations. Hang on. Hang on. Okay. Reassuring her without explanations, he set out at once for Arkham, but noticed the authorities that the Gardner family was no more. He indulged in no details, but merely told of the deaths of Nahum and Nabby, that of Thaddeus being already known, and mentioned that the cause seemed to be the same strange ailment which had killed the livestock. He also stated that Merwin and Zanus had disappeared. There was considerable questioning at the police station, but in the end, Emmy was compelled to take 3 officers to the Gardner farm together with the coroner, the medical examiner, and the veterinary who had treated the diseased animals he went from against his will. For the afternoon was advanizing, and he feared the fall of night over and the accursed place, but it was some comfort to have so many people with him. The 6 men drove out a Democrat wagon, following Amy's buggy, and arrived at the pest-ridden farmhouse. About 4 o'clock, used as the officers were so gruesome experiences, not one remained unmoved at what was found in the attic under the red, checked tablecloth. On the floor below, the whole aspect of the farm, with its grey desolation, was terrible enough, but those 2 crumbling objects were beyond all bounds. No one could look long at them. But even the medical examiner admitted that there was little to examine. Specimens could be analyzed, of course, so he busied himself in obtaining them. But here it develops that a very puzzling aftermath occurred at the college laboratory, where the 2 files of dust were finally taken under the spectroscope. Both samples gave off an unknown spectrum, in which many of the baffling bands were precisely like those which the strange meteor had yielded in the previous year. The property of emitting this spectrum vanished in a month, the dust thereafter consisting mainly of alkaline phosphates and carbonates. Amy would not have told the men about the well if he had thought they meant to do anything then and there. It was getting towards sunset, and he was anxious to be away, but he could not help glancing nervously at the stony curb by the great sweep. And when a detective, September 11th, hey yo! Heck yeah. Also, where was I? How dare you? Got me here looking at the funniest. And when a detective questioned him, he admitted that Nahum had feared something down there, so much that he had never even thought of searching for it. Merwin or Zanus, after that, nothing would do, but they empty and explore the well immediately. So Amy had to wait trembling while pail after pail of rank water was hauled up and splashed on the soaking ground outside. The men sniffed in disgust at the fluid toward the last held their noses against the filter. They were uncovering. It was not long as a job as they feared it would be, since the water was phenomenally low. There is no need to speak to exactly what they found. Merwin and Zanus were both there in part, though the vestiges were mainly skeletal. There were also a small deer and a large dog in about the same state, and a number of bones of smaller animals, The ooze and slime at the bottom seemed inexplicably porous and bubbling, and a man who descended on the handholds with a long pole found that he could sink the wooden shaft to a depth in the mud of the floor, which meeting in solid obstruction. Twilight had now fallen, and lanterns were brought from the house. Then, when it was seen that nothing further could be gained from the well, everyone went indoors and conferred at the ancient sitting room, while the intermittent light of a spectral half-moon played wanly on the grey desolation outside. The men were frankly nonplussed by the entire case, and could find no convincing common element to link the strange vegetable conditions, the unknown disease of livestock and humans, and the uncountable deaths of Merwin and Xanis in the tainted well. They had heard the common country talk, it is true, but could not believe that anything contrary to natural law had occurred. No doubt the meteor had poisoned the soil, but the illness of persons and the animals who had been eaten, nothing grown in the soil, was another matter. Was it the well water? Very possibly. It might be a good idea to gotta hate it when books are like sticky as fuck. Okay. That's 68. Yeah. Analyze it. But what peculiar madness could have made both boys jump into the well? The deed was so similar, and the fragments showed that they both suffered from the grey brittle of death. Why was everything so grey and brittle? It was the coroner seated near a window overlooking the yard who first noticed the glow about the well. Night had fully set in, and the all-abhorrent ground seemed faintly luminous, with more than the fistful moonbeams, but this new glow was something definite and distinct, and appeared to shoot up from the black pit like a softened ray from a searchlight, giving dull reflections in the light round pools. Where the water had been emptied, it had very queer color, and all the men clustered round the window. Amy gave a violent start. From this strange beam of ghastly miasma was to him of no familiar hue. He had seen the color before, and feared to think what it might mean. He had seen it in a nasty brittle globule in that aerotile 2 summers ago, and had seen it in a crazy vegetation of the springtime, and had thought it had seen it for an instant that was very morning against the small barred window of that terrible attic room, where nameless things that happened. But it flashed there a second, and a clammy and a hateful current of vapor had brushed past him, and then poor name had been taken by something of that color. He had said so at the last, said it. It was the globule and the plants, but after that come the runaway in the yard and the splash in the well. And now the well was belching forth to the night a pale, insidious beam of the same demonic tint. It does credit to the alterness of Amy's mind that he puzzled even at the tense moment over a point which was essentially scientific. He could not but wonder at his gleaming of the same impression from a vapor glimpsed in the daytime against a window opening on the morning sky, and from a nocturnal exhalation seen as the phosphorescent mist against the black and blasted landscape. It wasn't right. It was against nature. And he thought of those terrible last words of his stricken friend. Some place where things ain't as they is here. None of them professors said so. All 3 horses outside, tied to a pair of shriveled saplings by the road, were no neighing and pawing frantically. The wagon driver started for the door to do something, but Amy laid a shaky hand on his shoulder. "Don't go out there!" he whispered. Oh. Don't go out there. There we go. There's more to this note than we know, Nam said. Something lived in that well that sucks your life out. He said it. Must be some act flowed from a round ball like one we all seen in the meteor stone that fell a year ago. June sucks and burns, he said. He ain't is just a cloud of a color like that light out there now, that ye can hardly see and can't tell what it is. Name thought it feeds on everything, living and angst, stronger, all the time. He said he seen in this last week. It must be something from away in the sky, like the man from the college last year saw the meteor stone was. The way it's made and the way it works ain't like no way. Oh, God's world, it's some act from beyond. So the men paused indecisively as the light from the well grew stronger, and the hitched horses pawed and whined in increasing frenzy. It was truly an awful moment, but with terror in that ancient and accursed house itself, 4 monstrous sets of fragments, 2 from the house and 2 from the well, in the woodshed behind, and the shaft of unknown and unholy irate scents from the slimy depths in front. Amy had restrained driver on impulse, forgetting how uninjured he himself was after the clammy brushing of that colored vapor in the attic room. But perhaps it is just as well said. Just as well that he acted as he did. No one will ever know what was abroad that night, and though the blasphemy from beyond had not so far hurt any human of unweakened mind, there is no telling what it might have done at that last moment, and with its seemingly increased strength and the special signs of purpose it was soon to display beneath the half-clouded moonlight sky. All at once, one of the detectives at the window gave a short, sharp gasp. The others looked at him and then quickly followed. His own gaze upward to the point at which its idle string had been suddenly arrested. There was no need for words. What had been disputed in country gossip was disputable no longer, and it is because of the things which every of that party agreed in whispering later on, that the strange days are never talked about in Arkham. It is necessary to premise that there was no wind at that hour of the evening. No, one did arise not long afterward, but there was absolutely none then. Even the dry tips of the lingering hedge mustard grey and blighted, and the fringe and the roof of the stranding Democrat wagon were unstirred. And yet, amid that tense, godless calm, the high bare boughs of all the trees in the yard were moving. They were twitching morbidly and spasmodically, clawing in convulsive and epileptic madness at the moonlight clouds, scratching impotently in the noxious air, as if jerked by some alien and bodiless line of linkage with subterranean horrors, writhing and struggling below the black roots. Not a man breathed for several seconds. Then a cloud of darker depth passed over the moon, and the silhouette of clutching branches faded out momentarily. At this there was a general cry muffled with awe, and husky and almost identical from every throat. For the terror had not faded with the silhouette, and in the fearsome instant of deeper darkness, the watchers saw wriggling at the treetop height 1,000 tiny points of faint and unhallowed radiance, tipping each bow like the fire of St. Elmo, or the flames that came down to the apostles. Heads at Pentecost It was monstrous constellation of unnatural light, like a glutted swarm of corpse-fed fireflies, dancing hellish sarabands over an accursed marsh. And its colors was that same nameless intrusion which Amy had come to recognize and dread. All the while the shaft of phosphorescence from the well, which was brighter and brighter, bringing to the minds of the huddled men a sense of doom and abnormality which far outtraced any image their conscious mind could form. It was no longer shining out, it was pouring out, and as the shapeless stream of unplaceable color left the well, it seemed to flow directly into the sky. Also, holy shit, we're at 3 hours of reading time. Let's go. So proud of everyone. The veterinary shivered and walked to the front door to drop the heavy extra bar across it. Amy shook no less, but had to tug, to the point of the lack of control. Voice, when he wished to draw, noticed to the growing luminosity of the trees. The weighing and stamping of the horses had become utterly frightful, but not a soul of that group in the old house would have ventured forth for any earthly reward. With the moments of the shining of the trees increased, while the restless branches seemed to strain more and more toward vertically. The wood of the well sweep was shining now. And presently a policeman dumbly pointed to some wooden sheds and beehives near the stone wall. On the west, they were commencing to shine too, though the tethered vehicles of the visitors seemed so far unaffected. Then there was a wild commotion and clopping in the road as Annie quenched the lamp for better seeing. They realized that the span of frantic greys had broke their sapling and run off with the Democrat wagon. The shock served to loosen several tongues, and embarrassing whispers was exchanged. "It spreads on everything organic that has been around here," muttered the medical examiner. No one replied. The man who had been in the well gave a hint that his long pole must have stirred up something intangible. "It was awful," he added. "There was no bottom at all, just ooze and bubbles and the feeling of something lurking under there." Amy's horse still pawed and screamed deafeningly in the road outside, and nearly drowned its owner's faint quaver as he mumbled his formless reflections. "It come from that stone. It ground down there. It got everything living. It fed itself on a mind and body. Thad and Murney, Xanis and Nabby, Northam was the last. They all drank the water. It got strong on 'em. It come from beyond. War things ain't like they be here. Now it's going home." At this point, as the column of unknown color flared suddenly stronger and began to weave itself into fantastic suggestions of shape which spectator later described differently, there came from the poor tethered hero sound as no man before or since ever heard from horse. Every person in that low-pitched sitting room stopped his ears, and Amy turned away from the window in horror and nausea. Words cannot convey it. And when Amy looked out again, the hapless beast lay huddled inert on the moonlight ground between the splintered shafts of the buggy. Fuck. Yeah, like I said, creepy as scary. It's fucking horrifying. That was the last hero till they buried him next day. But the present was no return to mourn, for almost at this instant a detective silently called attention to something terrible in the very room with them. In the absence of the lamplight, it was clear that a faint phosphorescence had begun to pervade the entire apartment. It glowed on the broad planked floor and the fragment of rag carpet, and shimmered over the sashes of the small paned windows. It ran up and down the exposed corner posts, coruscated about the shelf and mantel, and infected the very doors and furniture. Each minute saw it strengthen, and at last it was very plain that healthy living things must leave that house. Amy shooed them back to the back door and passed up through the fields to the 10-acre pasture. They walked and stumbled in a dream and did not dare look back. They were far away on the high ground. They were glad of the path, for they could not have gone on the front way by that well. It was bad enough passing the glowing barns and sheds, and those shining orchard trees with their gnarled, fiendish contours, but thank heaven the branches did their worst twisting high up. The moon went under some very black clouds as they crossed the rustic bridge over Chapman's Brook, and it was blind, groping from there to the open meadows. When they looked back toward the valley and the distant gardener's place at the bottom, they saw a fearsome sight. All the farm was shining with hideous unknown blend of color. Trees, building, and even such grass and herbage as had not been wholly changed to lethal grey brittleness. The boughs were all straining skyward, tipped with tongues of foul flame, and lambent tricklings of the same monstrous fire were creeping. About the ridgepoles of the house, barn, and sheds, it was a scene from a vision of Fuseli, and over all the rest reigned the riot of luminous unfoolishness, that alien and undimensioned rainbow of cryptic poison from the well-seething feeling, lapping, reaching, scintillating, straining, and mentally bubbling in its cosmic and unrecognizable chromatism. Then, without warning, the hideous thing shot vertically up toward the sky like a rocket or meteor, leaving behind no trail and disappearing through a sound and curiously regular hole in the clouds. Before any man could gasp or cry out, no watcher could ever forget that sight, and Amy stared blankly at the skies of Cygnus, Deneb, twinkling above the others, where the unknown color had melted away into the Milky Way. But his gaze was the next moment called swiftly to earth by the crackling in the valley. It was just that, only a wooden ripening and crackling, and not an explosion, as so many others of the party vowed. Yet the outcome was the same, for in one feverish, kaleidoscopic instant there burst up from that doomed and accursed farm a gleamingly eruptive cataclysm of unnatural sparks and substance, blurring the glance of the few who saw it, sending forth to the zenith a bombarding cold cloudburst of such colored and fantastic fragments as our universe must needs disown. Through quickly reclosing vapors they followed the great morbidity that had vanished, and in another second they had vanished too. Beyond and below was only a darkness to which the man dared not return, and all about was a mounting wind which seemed to sweep down in blank furor guests from the interstellar space. Oh, sorry. It shrieked and howled and lashed the fields and distorted woods in a mad cosmic frenzy, till soon the trembling party realized it would be of no use waiting for the moon to shew. What was left down there at Nahum's, too odd even to hint theories. The 7 shaking men trudged back toward Arkham by North Road. Amy was worse than his fellows and begged them to see him inside his own kitchen instead of keeping straight on to town. He did not wish to cross the nighted wind-whipped woods alone to his home. a kind of growth or nourishment even now, but whenever Damon hatchling is there, it must be tethered to do something or else it would be quickly spread. Is it fastened to the roots of those trees that claw the air? One of the current Arkham tales is about fat oaks that shine and move as they ought to not do at night. What it is, only God knows. In terms of matter, I suppose the thing Amy described would be called a gas, but this gas obeyed laws that are not of our cosmos. There would be no fruit of such worlds, and suns as shine on the telescopes and photographic plates of our observatories. There was no breath from the skies whose motions and dimensions our astronomers measure or deem too vast to measure. It was just a color out of space, a frightful messenger from unformed realms of infinity beyond all nature. Brain and numbs us with the black, extra cosmic gulfs it throws open before our frenzied eyes. I doubt very much if Amy consciously lied to me, and I do not think his tale was all a freak of madness, as the townfolk had that meteor and something terrible, though I know not in what proportion still remains. I shall be glad to see the water come. Meanwhile, I hope nothing will happen to Amy. He saw so much of that thing, and its influence was so insidious. Why has he never been able to move away? How clearly he recalled those dying words of Naaman's. Get away, Josie. You know something's coming, but it's to no use. Amy is such a good old man. When the Reservoir Gang gets to work, I must write the chief engineer to keep a sharp watch on him. I would hate to think of him as the grey, twisted, brittled, monstrous, which persists more and more in troubling my sleep. Holy shit, what a story. Oh, that was one of the longer ones too. Wow, Color Out of Space. It's way better than I thought it would be. Holy shit. The book possessed me? Come now. No, it didn't. Also, I think we'll call it a day with that. Holy fuck. That was fucking awesome though. Ah. That was very nice. But wow, holy, I'm still in shock. You know, there's a game, like, it's about the next story, The Dreams in the Witch House. But there's also a game on Steam, just like Sunless Sea. I also plan to get, it's on my wish list. And it looks fantastic. So when I didn't look at it all that much. Just, you know, a little bit. Like, just cover, basically. So when I get it, and after I read the story and I get it, man, I'm gonna be like, yeah! That's what I thought! For real. Honestly, The Color Out of Space, I will say, it turned out better than I thought it would. Because there's a movie with Nicolas Cage in it as well, called The Color Out of Space. I don't know how true it is to the book, technically. I can't really say. I know, because I found out, that the most Lovecraft-based movies are not always as true to the, title as the books that they are based on, that their name is based off of. So you can't always trust it. But it's okay. That's one of those things, I guess. Either they want to make it interesting with their own spins and tales, which is all, whatever. A movie I totally recommend before I go, though. If you all have an interest in a little Lovecraft and want to get a little bit scared. Yeah, these books are terrifying. And there's some stories that will just, give you legit, anxiety sometimes when thinking about it. It's like, oh, shit. Nah. Definitely gives a lot of seasickness, for sure. Makes you think about the ocean way more than you would have thought of it beforehand. If you ever want to check out like something very Lovecraftian, not like tentacles and whatever, more like of this kind of stuff, then you should totally check out Banshee Chapter. It's really cool, really interesting. And there's like a segment that's like, it's always such an entertaining watch to me, that segment, that I won't talk about it, but it's just something that when you hear it, you're like, oh shit, like what, you know, it's, even the characters say like, what the fuck would you say that? But yeah, it's really cool. Hell yeah. But yeah, thank you all for joining my stream, my reading stream. Sorry it wasn't more of a gaming stream. I couldn't decide what game to play, so I was like, oh, I mean, I'll read. And then my friend was like, why don't you just read it to them? I was like, that's a fantastic idea, I will! And here I am, and I did. And let's go. Hell yeah. Quite scary stories, honestly. And who knows, they may be getting a good return. Should I want to do it again, for real? But it's just so much speaking. Ugh. Maybe I should do it at nighttime, because then I'll have more of a voice than right now. Ugh. But heck yeah. Anyway, wow. You wonderful. Yeah. Give me the tails. Thank you. You wonderful peeper weepers. Have yourselves a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Because I am Zareth Kingsfire. And as always, make sure you're around for the next one. When is it? I don't know, but I'm confident it's soon. Yeah. With that being said, nothing more left to say besides from I love you to death. Wah!